Welcome to yet another preview, this time ahead of Game Week 13 in FPL, which has just been so chaotic. So much has happened this week, and there's a lot to talk about. And all of the topics that are going to feature in this video have been chosen by you. So a massive shout out to everyone who sent in their questions, comments, and other stuff that they wanted to cover, such as players and comparisons. And let's get straight into it. The first question is sent in by Chu Wei Heng, so a massive shout out to you as well. He asked, when is it the best time to buy Jarrod Bowen? And I've talked about this before in previous videos and live streams, and I think either Game Week 16 or Game Week 18 is the best time to buy him if you look at the fixtures. And if I had to pick, I probably would go with Game Week 18, but there's nothing wrong with maybe playing it a little bit earlier and getting Jarrod Bowen in around Game Week 16 because he can do well against Burnley and also Arsenal. But before that, he's facing City, Brighton and Chelsea. I don't think now is the time to be bringing him in, and I think he's a really good asset. He could even tick along nicely in those fixtures, maybe even produce a double-digit haul, but I think the best time to get him in is either Game Week 16 or 18. If we look at his stats, very impressive across the season, especially since Game Week 5, when he went on a ridiculous run where he's only blanked twice in that time frame. So of course, I've talked about his stats before in previous videos. I think he's one of the best options around this price, same with Smith Rowe, Cornet and Gallagher, and honestly I think he could actually be the best West Ham attacker to choose, and on current form you have to say he's definitely the pick of the bunch. Now Chu also asked about Phil Foden, and so does Matin Salim, so massive shout out to both of you as well. So Chu actually asked who is actually better, Foden or Bernardo Silva, and then with Matin Salim he asked should we keep the faith with Phil Foden. Now a lot has changed since those questions were submitted. Of course, Foden didn't play in the PSG game, he wasn't even in the squad, and it looks like that injury is a bit more severe than first feared. That doesn't mean he's definitely ruled out for Game Week 13, but it is a possibility, and of course Guardiola was actually talking about it, and it looks like the reason why he was brought off early against Everton was because of that injury, and as a result he didn't feature against PSG in City's 2-1 win there. If you compare the stats between both players, they're actually very similar, but what we have to take into account is that Foden has played 3 fewer games, but in terms of goals and assists, identical. Bernardo Silva with just the 1 more goal, and in terms of shots, again identical, both of them with 9 shots on target, and Foden has 15 compared to Bernardo Silva's 14, but of course, with 3 fewer games, it is more impressive on Foden's side. Although once again, if you look at the price difference, almost $1 million in between both of them. And then shots in the box, 15 for Foden, 13 to Bernardo Silva. So identical across the board. Bernardo Silva significantly better with XG. Once again though, 3 more games. Maybe in that time frame, Foden could actually match him or even surpass Bernardo Silva's numbers. Now if I had to pick one, I would go for Bernardo Silva at this moment in time because Foden is marked as an injury doubt. But if he wasn't and he's cleared fit, then I would still go for Foden. I think in terms of the stats, they're very similar and there's not much to separate them, and I think both of them will tick along nicely, but I just think that Foden is more explosive and I think he could be a very nice differential, especially when a lot of people get off him and his ownership dips. But of course, if he's injured, then Bernardo Silva is definitely the City midfielder I would go to if you're looking for someone from that team still, and honestly, you can't go wrong with either. Bernardo Silva gives you a bit more money, but ultimately, if Foden is fit, he is the one I would go for. The next question is sent in by Zhao Muang Hein, and he asks, if I have Cancelo already, what do I do with Diaz? Now, I think it's the same thing. If you have Diaz, I would still move to Trent, Cancelo or James. Obviously in your case you already have Cancelo. I'm not sure if you have one of the other 2 fullbacks I mentioned, but I think a swap to one of them is definitely an easy switch. And if not, you can always go to Marcos Alonso or Antonio Rudiger. That would be my kind of second pick from the Chelsea defence, with Reece James now being at the very top. Let's see if Marcos Alonso is actually nailed in that team. And you asked also who is the best Spurs defender, and for me it is Reguilon. I have been talking about this in recent weeks. It is him or Emerson Royale, but I think Reguilon has better attacking stats, especially from a creative point of view, and we actually have both of them on screen, Marcos Alonso and Reguilon. If I had to pick, I would go for Marcos Alonso with the assumption that he starts the majority of games, which he should, as he's the only natural left wing back who is fully available for Chelsea. And if you compare their stats, they're quite similar, but Alonso has only played 6 games, Reguilon has almost played double. Yeah, he's only really leading him in terms of expected assists and also in terms of big chances created. But in terms of key passes, Alonso actually has more. Also in terms of big chances, 1 big chance for Alonso and 2 for Reguilon. And overall, pretty decent stats for both of them, but Alonso is far better. Also, considering the amount of minutes he has played, 11 shots, with 4 of them being on target. So for me, I would go for Alonso out of these two, and this is kind of a popular comparison to make, but the best Spurs defender is definitely Reguilon, and if I had to move on Diaz, it would definitely be in for Cancelo, who you already have, Trent Alexander-Arnold, or Reece James, and then after that it would be Alonso, Rudiger, and then a level below that even, then would come the likes of Reguilon and other assets that I've discussed in previous videos, and mainly they're going to be budget options. This question is sent in by Lipok Yamir, a long-time viewer of this channel, so very much appreciated, mate. He asks, is Benteke the solution to the forward drought problem in FPL? And I've actually talked about Benteke in recent videos, including my transfer tips video, and I think he's a decent option, especially with those fixtures coming up long-term over the Christmas period. I would rather go for Gallagher to cover Crystal Palace, but Benteke is a good option, and you look across the board and strikers are just not showing any form, and Benteke is up there in terms of the expected numbers and also just the underlying numbers in general, and also he's delivering. He's got very good form recently, he's scoring a lot of goals in the last few games, and if you look at his stats, they're pretty decent. He's had 8 big chances, so that would suggest that his numbers are quite sustainable, not amazing, they're nothing eye-catching or groundbreaking, but he is a budget option, and I think he is probably one of the better ones you can go for. I'm going to be talking about a few other budget options later on in this video, but Benteke for me is one of the best strikers you can go for around this price. And with Armstrong, who was actually a sell in my buy, hold, sell video that I made the other day, I think Benteke could be a good replacement for him around a similar price bracket, because Crystal Palace have some good fixtures coming up. I know they've got some tough ones as well on the horizon, like Man United and Everton on paper anyway, but I think Palace could still do a decent job in those games, and Benteke is a good option. Now, the same kind of problems arise with Benteke. He's going to be occasionally benched, I believe, especially with Edouard there. Of course, Edouard didn't actually start against Burnley because he had a little problem himself. And is Benteke the ultimate answer? I don't believe so. I think with Lukaku coming back into the mix, also Calvert-Lewin in a few weeks, Bamford should be back in a week or two's time. So I think there's going to be other options, and I don't think Benteke is the definitive answer, but I think he's probably one of the best budget forwards you can go for. The next question is sent in by Shauria, and he asks quite a lot of things. So he asks about Sadio Mane, and he also wants coverage on King and Dennis. So that's what we're going to do here. So in terms of Sadio Mane, you see him on screen right now. Very impressive stats. In terms of expected goals, only really Salah kind of trumps him on that stat. And he's got very good numbers across the board. 7 goals and 2 assists. So quite similar to Jamie Vardy. And he's actually got 1 more assist and goal contribution than the Leicester forward. And in terms of shots, 39 with 16 of them being on target. And his expected assist is also pretty decent. Just over 3. 13 big chances for the Senegalese forward. Also 3 big chances created and 13 key passes. So across the board, very good stats. And look at the amount of shots in the box. 33, very impressive numbers. And to be honest, I probably have gotten this wrong, because throughout the whole season some people have been asking me about Sadio Mane, and I've been talking about, well, I would rather just cover it with Salah and have a premium forward up front. That's the kind of structure I would look for. And also, you've already got Salah, you're covering Liverpool there. You can also have Jota to kind of compensate for the lack of Sadio Mane. And also, with Sadio Mane's hefty price tag, would you be captaining him? I think that FPL might have made a mistake putting him at a very similar price to Mohamed Salah, because there was always going to be one winner, with Salah being on penalties, and especially now in his electric form. This season that Mane is having is very impressive, but because Salah is just doing so well, everything is kind of being overshadowed. But I think a double up is on the cards. Of course, I would not have Mane at the expense of Salah. It would always be a double up. But the reason why I'm not too fussed or kind of looking to get Mane into my team is because you can cover him with Diego Jota, especially with Firmino being out injured. We don't know how long that's going to be for, of course. We should get some more news over the coming weeks. But Sadio Mane, of course, is a great option, and right now he's looking like the second best, you'd say, premium option behind Salah. But because you're not going to be captaining him, because you already are covering Liverpool, and you can get Trent and Diego Jota as your kind of triple up, I don't think you need Sadio Mane necessarily. But of course, it's a very nice differential, and having both Salah and Mane is definitely profitable at the moment. And of course, with all the other premiums blanking and doing very poorly, of course Sadio Mane right now is the second best premium. But would that continue? I think that Vardy, Harry Kane, all these other options, Ronaldo, Lukaku, I think they will step up, and Mane might not be as appealing of an option as he appears to be right now. But of course, statistically he's one of the best, and for me the best behind Mohamed Salah, and of course he is showing great value, so you can go for him, but I don't think you need to, and you can cover him with Diego Jota. So now we have the other question or topic that I wanted to cover, and that's the Watford attackers in Dennis and Joshua King. If we look at them statistically, King is definitely the one I would pick out of the two. He's got more big chances, far more, by the way, 4 times as much as Dennis. And of course, both of them have been doing very well. You have to also bear in mind that Dennis is slightly cheaper, but both of them are budget forwards and very similar stats. Of course, in terms of actual goal output, Dennis is leading with more assists. They both have the same amount of goals. And also in terms of XG, XA, Dennis is also kind of inferior in that statistic. But of course, it's not always about the underlying numbers. And sometimes some players are more clinical than others. But I think if you want someone who's kind of more sustainable, who's got good numbers and can only improve, I would go for King out of the two. But of course, you can't really go wrong with either of them. Would I be bringing them in right now? Probably not. Look at the next 3 fixtures: Leicester away, Chelsea at home, and Man City at home. I would actually be looking to bring them in ahead of game week 16 onwards, when Watford have a bit of a better fixture turnaround, rather than right now. I don't think now is the time to get in on them, but around game week 16, I would get one of them potentially if you need funds up front, and I would go for King, who could also be on penalties actually, with Sarr missing 2 penalties against Man United. So I think King would be my pick of the two. Both of them have decent stats, but King is superior. If he has penalties as well, he's only going to improve as an asset, and he could be the best budget forward that we need. So the last set of questions are asked by her Diakembe. Thank you very much to everyone as well once again for sending in these questions. So he asked about my opinion on the Man United situation. Now, he asked this several days ago, but news has actually come out that Ralf Rangnick is going to be the interim Manchester United manager. Whether that will be for the Chelsea game, I'm not so sure. It looks like Carrick is set to take charge of that at the weekend, but after, for game week 14 and onwards, I think that's when Ralf Rangnick will be able to take a grasp of this team, and I think that's actually good news for United. He is kind of like, he's associated with Jurgen Klopp and all these other managers who like to use the Gegenpressing method, and I think that Man United could do very well with this run of fixtures they have with Ralf at the helm. He's not really a long-term solution, but he will do well up until the rest of the season, until they find a suitable replacement like Pochettino or someone else. For me, Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes are always going to be the standout options for Man United. Of course, Sancho is showing a little bit of form now, looked pretty decent against Watford and then in the Champions League against Villarreal. But for me, Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes have to be the ones you go for. If you look at them statistically, very similar. Of course, you have to bear in mind Ronaldo is notably more expensive, but Bruno Fernandes isn't really producing the same level of FPL output as he was last season, and obviously after game week 1 scoring the hat-trick against Leeds United, we all thought that he was going to be the best asset in the game, but of course it hasn't turned out that way. But look at the amount of key passes he has made. It's absolutely insane. 38, which is by far the most of any player we have covered, even over the likes of Mohamed Salah. But Bruno Fernandes, I think his creativity stats are on another level. And if you want points from him, it's mainly going to come from those assists. And also, one thing to note with United is that in years gone by, they've gotten a lot of penalties. That hasn't happened this season, and that's why Bruno Fernandes is also kind of struggling from a goal-scoring point of view. He hasn't had a shot on target for over 2 months. I expect that to change very soon. They've got some kind of tough fixtures coming up, but around game week 15-16, that is when their run is absolutely exceptional for several months, and I would definitely look to be getting in Bruno Fernandes or Ronaldo, especially if they show some kind of form, which I think they will under Ralf. And also, just in general, Ronaldo, of course, in terms of the goal-scoring stats, is far superior to Bruno Fernandes, but is he worth that premium price tag around 12 million? At the moment, he definitely isn't, but that could change. And if he can translate that Champions League form to the Premier League, then of course Ronaldo will be worth every single penny, and even though he's very expensive, of course, both of them are very good assets. If I had to pick one right now, I would actually be tempted by Bruno Fernandes, but I think it's a bit more difficult to kind of fit him in. The only kind of other option around his price you can go for is Heung-min Son. With Cristiano Ronaldo, though, I think it's better for your structure. So this reminds me of the kind of Harry Kane-Son debate, and even though a few weeks ago I was insistent on Son being a better asset, at least before Conte, I actually would prefer Kane because of the structure, and the same goes here with Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes. Because of the structure, because I would want a striker around that price to kind of deviate and change every few weeks or so to maybe Lukaku, Harry Kane and all the others, I probably would prefer Ronaldo because of that. And to be fair, with Bruno Fernandes, you can also go to Sadio Mane, so there is actually an argument to maybe go for him instead. But I think both of them are definitely the main ones you'd want to look at. Would I look at their defenders at this moment in time? No. But of course, with that really long fixture run, you could go for David De Gea in goal, also cover them with one of their defenders, of course, Luke Shaw, and all these other assets potentially. But I'm not convinced by United defensively. Of course, they could improve, but I'm mainly looking at their attacking assets, and Bruno Fernandes and Ronaldo are definitely the pick of the bunch. And those are my thoughts on Man United. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and smash the like button and subscribe if you're new as always. He also asked me about Romelu Lukaku, and of course he has been out for some time, but he's now available. He should be fit to face Manchester United in game week 13, and if not, he will definitely be starting around game weeks 14 onwards. Now his stats are pretty decent in general. I think his creativity is kind of matching his goal scoring numbers, as you can see from his XG and his XA, and he's also had 4 big chances himself, and he has created 3 big chances, and he is that kind of focal point up front who's not only going to score goals himself, but he's also going to be linking up and taking those positions to give more space to the wing backs and the wingers. So Lukaku, I think, even though he might have a pretty poor game from an FPL point of view, he can still be very instrumental in how Chelsea play, and he makes the other assets even better. But would I be going for him right now? I would be waiting and seeing how he does. I think he's actually going to improve. I know they've got some kind of tough fixtures coming up over the next 5, but I think Chelsea and Lukaku will do very well, and I think Lukaku will actually be significantly better than he was at the beginning of the season. But does that mean I would go in with Lukaku right now? Probably not. It's a wait and see. I'd rather go for Harry Kane and potentially Ronaldo around game weeks 15 and 16. But if Lukaku starts to show some underlying stats that are really promising or some really good form, that's when I would go for the Belgian. But for now, with Lukaku, I think he's going to improve, and that's kind of my general consensus with it. I think he's going to be a very good asset, but it's a wait and see for me rather than just going in blind. And the final question he asked is, should we target any Norwich players? For me, I wouldn't go for any of them, but if I had to pick 3, I would go for Timo Pukki up front. I think he's kind of like the main one I would go for if I wanted one for my team, but I'm not really too sure about him if I'm being completely honest. And the other 2 would be just budget options for your bench, Billy Gilmour and Norman. I think those would be the ones I'd go for. That's the most likely route I would go into the Norwich team. But in terms of the starting 11, it has to be Timo Pukki. I think he could be one of the better budget options around. And Norwich have some decent fixtures coming up, and Dean Smith could do a good job. And of course, that's now 2 wins in a row, one with Daniel Farke and one with Dean Smith. Let's see if they can carry that momentum forward. And Pukki can be very streaky. We saw that 2 seasons ago when he first came into the Premier League, and he won the Player of the Month with very good performances against the likes of Chelsea and Manchester City. But I'd still be very hesitant and cautious with going with Norwich assets. But of course, those 2 budget options could be very good. Then again, though, I'm not expecting much from those 4.5 million options, but I think Gilmour could actually be the kind of main pick from Norwich. But other than that, I would not be targeting their defenders. They haven't kept a clean sheet this season, but regardless, you don't have too much faith in their defence, and with good reason. Their numbers are absolutely poor. So if anything, just go for one of their budget midfielders if you need someone on your bench to come and cover from time to time. And if not, Pukki could be a decent option up front. But otherwise, for now, it's a wait and see, and I wouldn't really be thinking about it too much. So that's it. Those are the topics that you lot have asked. So thank you very much once again to everyone who put forward these questions. And if you have any more, leave them down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. What do you think of Ralf Rangnick being the new Man United manager, at least as an interim manager? That will be very interesting indeed. And what else do you think of anything else we have covered here today? Of course, there's a lot to talk about. Let's see if Foden is actually going to be fit in time for Game Week 13. If he isn't, that's another headache to deal with, and something else I need to actually bear in mind for my team selection ahead of the deadline stream, and much more. Good luck with Game Week 13. Enjoy this Christmas period. It's going to be very busy, and I'll see you next time.